What was it that really drove you into pursuing this initiative?
I started my career in critical care medicine in 2012, and the first ICU I worked in was what I now call an awake and walking ICU, meaning that every patient possible was awake. So even if they were on a ventilator with a breathing tube, they were not sedated. They were allowed to wake up after the procedure of placing the breathing tube and able to communicate, writing on a clipboard, texting to us, and we would get them moving, usually walking, within 12 hours after intubation. I didn't realize what I was doing there was novel or unique. And after a few years, I became a travel nurse. And even my very first shift in a new ICU, I had a patient assignment in which one of the patients was intubated with a breathing tube on a ventilator, and they were sedated. And we went in circles on this. And that was the first time I had realized that this was the common mentality throughout the rest of the critical care community, that every patient connected to a ventilator was going to be
Had to be.
sedated. And back then, I didn't know the harm of that. And everyone was doing it. It was just so normalized that I thought, well, it must be okay. So I did the normal thing, sedated many patients for about 2 years as a travel nurse throughout many ICUs. And I almost left nursing. I was so burnt out. Had very little career fulfillment, but I did decide to go back to grad school and started to look into the research. And the more I learned, the more I realized there's no way that my colleagues and all these other ICUs knew what I'm reading here. That I don't think they knew the harm of what we were doing to these patients. So I just felt this weight of responsibility to disseminate this information, but I had no idea how to. December of 2019, I had a very distinct, which I know was divine inspiration to start a podcast. And I barely even knew what a podcast was. Started to wake up in the morning and have to write down instructions from God on what episodes to do, what order. Part of the instruction was I had to do it was 32 episodes by March 5th. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do that and then I'll be done. This little passion project is going to be done. So I started Dayton ICU Consulting to try to have the chance to go in and train these teams. And at this point, I've now trained 13 with really exciting success. It drastically decreases healthcare costs. Teams have saved millions of dollars within the first year. Drastically saves lives, quality of life, the team morale. This has been a journey of healing from these ICU teams to learn how to work together, to carry the burden of care together, to have the fulfillment of seeing patients do well, having human connection with them. And so it just changes so much for these patients. I've continued the podcast. I now have 187 episodes